Sorry about that, guys. Okay, let me double check to make sure this worked, though. I don't want to start blabbing again and then realize I'm not on the right channel. Okay, I'm here. Oh, you know what? I'll do a quick cliff notes of what I just said because I don't want to have to bore you guys if you already heard it on my other channel. Okay, a few announcements that I have. First one, we have a Photoshop stream tonight for Citizen users. If you are a member of cgcookie.com, I'm going to be doing an hour live stream tonight if you follow the link below. It's pretty much on how to get around in Photoshop if you're new to it and you want to get more comfortable with the software. I'm going to be doing these streams now every Wednesday night on there as well. So the Twitch ones aren't going anywhere, but we're also going to be throwing in Citizen streams as well at night. And those times will change because I know a lot of you guys that live in Europe are on the other side of the world, can't make that time period. So I'm going to try to find a time frame that works earlier as well for you guys. If you guys could put where you're watching from, I always like seeing where you guys are watching from around the world. And I'll do my shout outs in just a second. Second announcement is a robot tutorial is coming out tomorrow. I finished the last two this morning. I finished editing them. And we will have the full course out tomorrow at some point. The third one, the etcher bags that, well, thank you for following. So I was sent this lovely new etcher bag from the people at Etcher Labs, and they asked me to do a review and tutorial on it, which I will be recording hopefully either Friday or Saturday. And I'm just going to be doing a review and talking about the product, what I like, what I'm not so keen on, and I will have a review of that. It's a very durable bag. I will say the entire thing being weatherproof is impressive. And it comes with the nice little new pencil case that is also waterproof. All right, fourth thing, next week we're going to be doing the contest stream. So if you guys have been waiting for this contest, I know I keep pushing it back, but that's only because we want it on cgcookie.com and we're like literally that close to getting it finished. So be tuned for that, and it will be a very big contest. We're doubling the prizes. It'll be a good time all around. Okay, there's a fifth thing. If you are looking to subscribe to this channel, I will send you a golden fridge if you are a subscriber for 6 months. And you know what? I'm going to put this one on while I announce the last thing. For those of you that were expecting Key to be with me today, I was joking on my other channel that we got in a huge fight and things are really bad between us right now. But I'm just kidding. They're actually all in Gen Con. My roommates are gone for the weekend except for Ashley. So if you see them or if you're going to Gen Con, and I would definitely recommend stopping by. They're great people and you can definitely have a conversation with them. Okay. So now that we are on the right channel and I feel like I got my announcements out, let me do a quick shout out of where people are coming from, and then we will go ahead and get started talking about gaining a following today. So, okay. Gypsy from Southern Oregon, Lady Averin from Washington State, Zane Draws from Ohio, John Miller from Indiana, Ella from Sweden, Bomb from UK, Rami from Hungary, Haha Little Joker from Tennessee, Altered Mage from Canada, Becca John from Indiana, Auxilian from Italy, Hazetti from Northern, I think Cali, Christy from Northern Oregon, GK from UK, well hello GK, C. Allen from Washington, Paladisi from Germany, Freya from Colombia, Sammy from New York City, Jake Kierbell from Argentina, Brian also from Argentina, Chris from Texas, Quainimus from Finland. For some reason that read as Flanlin in my mind. Spiderhunt from Denmark, Ari Sayu from Germany, Miss Chibi from Michigan. Hi, Miss Chibi. Rosie T from Ontario, and TB's from Rhode Island. Okay. So once again, I apologize. I forgot my stream key was set to my personal Von Art Twitch channel. So now we're good and squared away. So I'm going to just switch over because I feel like I've already wasted enough of your guys' time. So today, it's all about gaining a following. And I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier on how this has been a requested stream for a while, but now that I'm doing more of these lecture streams, I feel like this is the perfect time to roll it along with these because I feel like there's been a good response to them, and I feel that I'm teaching a lot of what I always talk about with my art friends or things that maybe you guys talk with your art friends, but I feel like it's never discussed live as much or on a public setting. So I think for me, it's kind of nice taking that plunge and seeing you guys not only respond to it, but also have a discussion about it. Well, thank you for following. I don't have my the right overlay on, so if you guys are following, I thank you. and I can't shout out names like I normally do. Okay, and if you have any questions during this, or if you want to throw out something that you've been through with what we're talking about, or if you have a shared experience, please put at CG Cookie Concept before your comment in the comment box, because I have it on my other screen, and that way I can quickly see it as we're going through this. Okay, so gaining a following, and I feel like I want to do a preface in a second, but I do think this is going to cater more to gaining a following on Instagram. I do think I will touch on doing a following from DeviantArt, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, all those other ArtStation, DrawCrowd, all these other platforms, but I feel like Instagram really is the number one for artists nowadays. I know Facebook is still the most used platform. Well, thank you for all of you guys following. But currently, I would say Instagram is definitely the number one for artists, especially if you're trying to get more exposure as an up-and-coming artist. Okay, so talking about gaining a following, I need to preface this by saying there is no guide, and it's not formulaic, unlike most movies nowadays. I feel like I need a burn button, like a burn. But there is no guide. I feel like if there was, everyone would be following it and everyone would have hundreds and thousands of followers. It's not that easy. A lot of it is testing the waters, figuring out how things work for you, getting lucky a little bit, and then having consistent quality. But we're going to be going through the how and why in just a second, because I feel like I need to preface it with not only saying there's no guide, but I don't think it's fair to be dismissive of someone because of their follower count. I would think it would be ridiculous if I didn't listen to someone's opinion or didn't want to hear what they say because of the follower count that they have. There are so many quality artists out there that have very low follower counts on Instagram, usually because they're not playing the social media game like a lot of us are. A lot of them are old masters that have real jobs and they don't have the time to sit there and try to develop a brand and build themselves up because they already got the full-time job. This is so new to them, it's out of their spectrum. And I think especially I'm saying that because I've gone through experiences myself being at conventions where I have been dismissed because of my follower count. And this is more or less like 2 years ago when I started my Instagram. I realized that people would ask me how many followers I would have, and when I would tell them, at the time it was like 1,000 or 500. It was in between that number. It was kind of that acknowledgement from them of like, okay, almost like not only did they dismiss me in their mind, but then they kind of had that, okay, they aren't as good as they as I thought they might have been, or they are just as good as I thought they were. And I think having a number represent a person is kind of gross. There is a flip side to it. I would feel like it has given me validity in some way, some validation, because there was another con recently that I was at, and I kind of had that same conversation. It was a different person, but the same kind of person that wanted to judge my quality of work based on the count of Instagram followers I had. So they told me, well, how many did you have? Are you in the thousands yet? And then I kind of looked at them, and this is the only time I kind of used my count like for me, and I was like, oh no, I'm actually closer to 30. And they were like, oh, like 30 what? Like 30 followers? And I was like, no, 30,000. And like instantly I could see that veil of their like smug arrogance. It just dropped. And like all of a sudden this artist that was talking to me, that they thought they were top notch, and they had, I think at the time, like 10,000 some followers. So for them to approach me like they were better than me because they're walking around with 10,000 followers on their shoulders, it's just ridiculous. I think the whole idea of having a number represent a person is ridiculous. The only thing that I think keeps me going on wanting to gain more followers is because for me it's a game. It's kind of a fun game and you connect with people. The underlying all of this is literally you're connecting with other people that either relate to your work, or there's a connection between them and your work, and in that way there's a connection between you and them. So I think that is the most important thing about wanting to gain a following. It shouldn't be so that you can put other artists down because you have more followers than them. That's really gross. Okay, so Oh, and I want to say that there is also a misconception. Even with the story I just told, just because you have a higher following count, it does not make you a better artist. And I feel like that's going to be something I'm going to repeat through this stream, because there are so many artists, even like Brahm, if you check his follower count, he has, let's see here, he has about 13,000 followers. And at the moment, I believe I'm at like 36. So if we were just looked at numbers, if anyone was to be like, well, that would mean you're better than Brahm, I would slap them in the face, because Brahm is one of my highest, I would say, inspiration polls that I look up to, and he is a far better artist. So the fact that he only has 13,000 followers, I don't think that represents the quality of work that he outputs. If anything, it shows that he is too busy to care about things like social media and try to build a following, because he's already getting paid amount of money. And it was very interesting. I made a list of a bunch of artists, and I was just looking at the numbers that they have. I was looking at the number of times they post, how frequently they do. And I would say there was definitely consistencies that me and my friends kind of knew already, but I want to share them with you through this stream. Okay, I think that's all the prefaces that I want to say. No, there is one last one. So the last one with gaining a following is it's very easy to get caught up in this game. And I think you can get addicted to it, and then your self-worth is almost dependent on either your Instagram followers or how many comments or how many likes you get on the things you post. I am telling you from firsthand experience, I understand that. I definitely feel like if I'm in a good mood, it's reflective of how well I'm posting on social media. Do I think this is healthy? Not necessarily. Do I think it motivates me to keep drawing? Yes. So I think there is a balance in between there. I think if you go too far one way, you're not posting things that are authentic, and you're just posting, you're playing the game. You're only playing the game, and your followers will recognize that. I don't think that these are just like mindless followers that everything you post, it's like. I do think they look at what you're posting, and if you're kind of dropping in quality or you're posting the same type of art over and over, they'll notice, and they'll definitely maybe not like as much. Or if you keep doing it, maybe you'll push them to not even subscribe to you anymore. So I think that's something to think about. And then if you go the other way, where you're not playing the game at all, you're not really getting exposure, and then when you want to do, let's say, a Kickstarter, you don't have the amount of people following you to get that amount of exposure. And I think that there has to be a balance between the two. And I think sometimes I linger too much on playing the game, and I have to pull myself back sometimes, you know? Okay, so let's start this off. So the first things that I'm going to talk about right away, I'm going to get out why and how. I feel like these are the two big things that people always want to know. So I was like, you know what, why not bring these up first? Oops. I'm going to see if I can write these here. Oh, where's my glove? Ooh. Sorry, Cintiq. I'm going to get some smudges on you today. And like I said, if there's anything that you guys feel you want to contribute to the discussion, I tend to ramble and talk for long periods of time. So I think it's okay if you interject with comments or your own opinions, because I know I can just go. If you just let me go and talk, I will go. And I won't slow down anytime soon. But I need that break up because I think sometimes I'm too fast. Okay, so first let's talk about why. Let me pull up my notes here. Okay, so why? I would say the first reason is you connect. I would say this is actually, like I said earlier, this is the most important reason. The whole point of us even posting art is so that we connect with other people. As artists, we have a hard time sometimes talking with people. And I feel like art is a visual language in which we're able to express ourselves more clearly. So connecting with other people that can relate with us or that can share a similar experience is very important to us. So I think connect is very much the number one of why. Number two, exposure. I think this one is pretty simple to understand. Having a larger following means that you can get a new product out there sooner. Or if you have this new idea or a storybook, you can have a larger audience that will read it or that will look at it. And having a larger exposure will mean that there will be just a larger pot of people that can hopefully not only look at what you're doing, but also can relate to you. And that goes back to the number one of connecting with people. So the third one is financial gain. I feel like if you wanted to do a Kickstarter, oh gosh, I'm like, am I spelling this right? Financial, ooh, I think that might be wrong. So this word's up in the air right now. But financial gain, I feel like if you wanted to do a Kickstarter and you launched it, but you only had like 300 people following you versus if you had, let's say, 30,000 people following you, the percentages are in your favor if you have a larger number of followers to get more of a return on people investing in whatever product you're pushing out on Kickstarter. So I think just for that reason alone, and as for artists, it's a struggle to, I would say, live a life where you're financially comfortable. So having a large number of people that follow you so that you can have a financial gain whenever you push out a new print or a Patreon or any Kickstarter product, a book, whatever it might be, it would make more sense. Okay, wait 1 second. I'm going to grab my glove for my hand so I'm not smudging my computer too bad here. Whew, okay. Sorry. It was like hiding under my bed sheets. I often draw on my iPad Pro before I go to bed. Story of my life. Okay. Let me see if there's questions here. Okay, Chrissy says, so I know that knowing your taste is really important in your artwork. My problem is, what do you do if you feel like none of your artwork is up to par with your taste? Oof. This has caused me to hold back on posting something on the medias. Okay, wait, let me catch my breath. I didn't realize running up and down the stairs so quickly would keep me out of breath. Okay, so this is something that I had a problem with earlier when I had my social media, and I would say I started primarily on Facebook, and I'll talk about this in a second. But yeah, there was a problem I had there too, where I felt like my quality wasn't hitting my taste level. So I wasn't expecting a lot of people to follow me because I don't think I would follow myself. And it was a struggle, but at that time I was so headstrong. I was like, well, I gotta get better. And that carried me through into gaining more of a following today. But I need you to have more of a mentality of I gotta push through, because if you can recognize that your quality is not where you want it to be, that means that you really gotta put in more time and effort and continue to just better the quality output that you're doing. Oh, why am I out of breath? Whew. You know what? Let me take a sip of tea here. That may help me out. Today's tea is sponsored by Constant Comment. It's like one of my favorite teas. Ooh, okay. So yeah, I think that would be my biggest piece of advice, and just to know that eventually your skill level will catch up to your taste. And hopefully your taste will always kind of be a little in front of you. That way you're always striving to be a little better than what you're currently at. But don't stop posting. As much as you think that what you're creating now isn't up to your standards, people like to see growth. People love to see progress. So by posting now, in a year or two, people can always look back and be like, man, look how much they've grown in just a year. And that's a conversation right there that will inspire people. So don't stop posting. Paladisi says, you call your deer Techmate Cintiq? You need to give it a proper name. Mine isn't called Jerome. I normally do. My printer is called Buster because he busted on me so many times. And then my my scanner, I named him Nosep instead of backwards Epson. So I don't know. I could name my Cintiq. I'd have to think about it though, because I feel like me and my Cintiq have had an interesting friendship. It hasn't been the best, I'll just say. Sammy W. Key said you spelled it right. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. Tijel says, don't believe Tim. He's lying. He's only started talking to me because of my many, many Instagram followers. Yeah, that's the only reason I ever show respect to anyone is just based on the count of following they have. Like, really think if people actually thought that way. It's just kind of a gross way of thinking. I will say, not to like defend it, but I will say I do feel some common grounds or common familiarity with when I go to a convention and I recognize someone with also a larger following count. And I think part of it is just I get very overwhelmed with communication. I think I've gotten very bad over the last 4 years because I constantly receive messages from people I don't know. And I like it because I feel like I'm connecting with people. And I do my best to always respond to everyone, but it takes me like a month sometimes. But I feel like just asking them questions on familiar grounds, I feel like there's a connection that is made just because I feel like they have a similar experience that they might be going through that I could connect and relate to on that level. Okay, going back to the why, and thank you whoever just followed. I'm sorry again that I can't see your name. The last one is what we just talked about with validity. And if that is not a word, I just made it up. Let me double check. Oh, it is. All right, beautiful. So with validity, I feel like I can now go to conventions because of my Instagram follower count. And I know that that sounds really bad, but I have submitted just my Instagram page to bigger conventions and I've gotten in them, I think just because purely of the follower count. So I think you do have leverage when you have a higher number. And I'm not even that high. I mean, there's artists with hundreds and thousands and even some in the millions. So for me with 36, I feel like I'm getting a little lucky, but it is kind of nice, I guess, for me to be lazy and not like send them my website or give more of a lengthy explanation. So I don't even think that's a great reason, but I will say it has gotten me into places just because of that number. So as much as I think the number can sometimes haunt people and make them compare and contrast them to other artists and like, oh, I'm not that good or I'll never be good enough to be on their level because I only have 500 followers. I don't want you to think that way because 2 years ago, I only had 500 followers. So I am more or less a testament of speaking from experience and from how I got to where I am now. And I'll explain on the next slide because I'm going to talk about transparency. I'll show you how I got to even 36 and how I'm going to take that hopefully even further. So before I do that, let's talk about the how. So how do you gain more followers on any social media platform, especially on Instagram? And I think that's the reason probably a lot of you came to the stream. The number one reason, and I will never question it, or every time I do question it, it always comes back to the same answer. Number one reason, quality. By far, that's the number one reason I see people get a lot of followers on Instagram. And usually it's matched with the next point, which is consistency. Which some people would say quantity. But you see a lot of artists out there that post a lot of quantity, but their quality might not be that great. And in turn, because of that, they're really not gaining much of a following. If anything, they're pretty much plateauing and they're at that same point because they're not focusing on quality. They're only focused on quantity. And I think that does hurt an artist because as someone that is following other artists, I am looking to be inspired. And if I look at what you're posting and it's literally the same level of quality and it's just over let's say the length of a year, I'm probably going to unfollow because I'm no longer inspired. You no longer are giving me anything to be inspired from. And I think that's something that you also have to take a look at your art. And I do this to myself all the time. I feel like I'm my own bully. I sometimes will look and say, okay, Tim, you've done 3 portraits recently. You are boring me. And I'll be like, on your next piece, you have to do something big and weird because other people are probably thinking the same thing. And yeah, I think it can be a problem to be super self-critical, but I feel like it's gotten me further, and it's at least opened my eyes to not plateauing, or at least attempting not to plateau. And that's something that we always talk about on these streams. So just be aware of what you're putting out and what you're outputting. And are you shooting more for quality, or are you shooting more for quantity? And I think there's a lot of people that would argue with me, and they would say that you should be posting every day, and that's what will get you followers. But I feel like in my experience in talking with my art friends, and even with meeting some of these new art friends that I have that have more followers than I do, it's been kind of the same response, where it's quality first and then quantity second. And consistency is also very important. It was the only thing that I think I would disagree with Bobby Chu in his video on gaining followers. I think it was his number 3 point was changing it up, or like mixing it up, something along those lines. And as much as I personally do believe in how good it is to kind of change it up and like try different mediums and do different subject matters, I think that can actually hurt an artist in their game, so to speak. And I think the best example is one of my new friends. His name's Nate Hillier. I met him at an Indiana Comic-Con. And when I met him, I think he was still under 10,000 followers. And that was only like 3-4 months ago. And on his page, and actually, you know what? I'll write his name in the comment section here. And on his page, if you look at his Instagram page, it is so consistent and it is so branded. Like, he knows his brand well. And he is really pushing it right now. And he's doing an excellent job. He pretty much is going to pass me in the next month, I would say, easily, because of how consistent he is. And when people follow him, not only do they know what to expect from his type of art, but they can expect it frequently. And people like that. People like to follow an artist based on their style and then to get frequent posts of that style. So I think when Bobby was saying that people like to see it changed up or have different mediums thrown in, I would say usually from experiences of talking with my own art crew, usually we don't like it as much when an artist really is changing it up and is inconsistent with their quality or their mediums. And it's a shame. I wish that wasn't true. And I have worked myself to stick with people even through their experimentation, because sometimes it pays off. I think the best example, let me put another one in the chat, is Danny Diaz. And I think on Instagram it's Mr. Danny Diaz. He is a fantastic example of someone that can experiment through different styles, different mediums, and it is all fantastic. He's one of my, I would say, favorite artists right now, just because of how he can adapt to so many different styles and mediums. And I really respect that about him. And I think for that reason alone, I follow him. Well, and his quality is fantastic, and it's always weird and wonderful. And his Inktober was fantastic. And we'll talk about trends on social mediums and why those are good too. But I feel like I keep tangenting off of why here, or how, I mean. So the third one is you. People will follow you for you. If usually they like your art, I do 100% believe that your art is a reflection of life and that person. So if people like your art, there's a good chance that they do probably like aspects of you as well. So the more personable you make it, I think the better. When you do your descriptions, don't just put I did art, unless if you're like trying to be funny, or if you like only put the title for everything you post. It's very cold. It feels very business-like almost. So having a description that just shows a little more personality behind it helps, I think, big time. And I think it's also good to note, though, as much as they might like you as a person, first and foremost, they followed you for your art. So there's another thing that you have to be careful with. Don't post too many personal pictures. And I know that this can be disputed and discussed, but I feel like coming from personal experience, not only for myself, but my entire art crew here at Bondhouse, and even the friends that I have in Northern Illinois, it's pretty consistent that the more an artist posts about themselves, or like their pictures on vacation or what they're eating, the more likely of a chance that they'll unfollow you. I have personally, I'm not going to name artists, but I have unfollowed, I would say 3 to 4 people just because they were posting too many life pictures. And I use my Instagram as a place of inspiration. It's almost like a second Pinterest board for me. And every day I check it and I just look to be inspired. So there's only so many times I can see a picture of a cat or a dog or a vacation trip before it's like, okay, I'm getting a little bored of, or not even bored, I'm almost becoming dismissive of what you're posting now because it's no longer about the art. And I choose to follow people based on art. So just something to keep in mind. I think every once in a while is fine, but I think if you have like 4 in a row, I think you're really pushing it. And I think for a lot of artists that follow other artists, I think they have a very similar mindset that I do, that it's too much and they would rather see art. And you might be like, well, why won't they want to see me? If they really liked me for me, they would still follow. It's like, well, yeah, but they came here for your art first and foremost. So I think you have to put your ego aside and start posting more art, because that's really the first reason people can follow you. And there are some artists that I think post a lot of selfies or like photos of themselves. I think it is a little self-indulgent. I think it might be slightly narcissistic. And I think that it can come across that way. So if you're posting a lot of pictures of yourself, just realize that it might be giving off actually more of a bad connotation for the people looking at it. It doesn't always read as like a positive, I'm happy, like look at me. It can read as, look at me, I'm self-absorbed. And I think there has to be a balance between the two. And that's not always true. I think there are people that genuinely post just a lot of pictures of their life and what they're doing because they're excited, they want to post it. And you know what? It's up to them for whatever they want to post. If they want to post that, they can post it. And if you don't like it, unfollow. I think that's like the bottom line for most of these, is in the way of thinking that you don't have to cater your Instagram to anyone. And a lot of these tips that I'm giving you today are more or less on what I've seen work to gain followers, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to follow it. If anything, this is just like a guideline from personal experiences that you can choose to adopt, or you can pick and choose what you think will work for yours. But I'm just going to share more or less experiences and what has worked and what has not. So I don't want it to come across like this works, this doesn't. If you do this, you're coming across narcissistic. I don't think that's the case. I think that's just sometimes how it appears. And I'm sharing this with you guys because I try to be honest with you, and I try to have what I say be as transparent as possible. Okay. The last one, oh no, there's 2 more. The 4th one on how do you get followers? Luck. And yeah, I know you might be thinking, well, that's a shame. How am I supposed to get lucky? I'm the most unlucky person ever. This is one of those things where any artist that says that they've made it on their own for their entire career, I believe is a liar. I think a lot of us have met the right people at the right time. We have posted something when it was just like, it was trending. It was the perfect time. You gained a lot of followers off that one post, or it became viral. There's a lot of times where you get lucky. So you might be wondering, well, what if I'm just not lucky? I can't rely on luck to gain followers. Put yourself in a scenario where you create your own luck. And you see a lot of people do this when they do either fan art, or let's say you do a fan art of a celebrity. If they release an album and you draw them, or you draw a band. Or another example is like Game of Thrones is really big right now. If you do a really kick-ass fan art of a Game of Thrones character that was really prevalent in the last episode, you might get featured, you might get shared. Like there's a lot of things that you're creating your own luck. You're not relying on luck to find you. Now that's not to say it will work. I would say I would say all the times I've drawn a celebrity and like tagged them in it, it has not worked. They haven't reshared it, or they have gotten any exposure from that. But I'm still putting myself in that lottery where maybe it's like a 1 in 10 chance, or maybe it's a 1 in 10,000 chance. But who knows when your number will get called. So putting yourself in these scenarios, eventually you're going to get lucky. So create your own luck. And I think this also has to do with Inktober. So social trends. If you see one happening, I think May was probably the most popular one outside of October, where it was May. And essentially any artist drew well, you're supposed to draw a mermaid every day for the month, but what I saw happen is they would draw one mermaid and they would post it sometime in the month of May. That was great. I love seeing everyone's interpretation, and I did my own. I did my own mermaid, and it did get me a bit of exposure, and I think because of the hashtag that was used and was going around, people were specifically looking for other people's interpretations of mermaids. So when you see one trending and it's working and it's really picking up steam, I think the last recent one, if you guys have been active on Instagram, has been the Childhood Week, which was ran by Beatrice Blue, and that's Danny Diaz's significant other. And it was great. I think when we first heard about it, just even at the house, we were like, oh, that's kind of cool. Like she's doing that and we'll see what she does. And then who knew, it kind of blew up and you saw a bunch of artists submitting their work. And I thought it was just going to be her thing of like posting for a week on her childhood memories. But I came to learn after like the second day, oh, this is like another mermaid, this another Inktober that she's developed, and it worked. It worked very well. And even with this October, me and Gawky are running Drawtober. So if you are interested in joining one of these monthly events, not only am I going to be doing it every day in October, but we're going to be sharing other people's work. We're going to be giving out pins for those that are going to compete alongside us in Drawtober. So if you're looking for a challenge this October and you want to be shared and noticed, you will definitely at least be noticed by us at Bondhouse and a few of my friends. And this is the Instagram follow where we will be posting the calendar and your work if you decide to compete. The last one that I have for gaining followers on how is style. And then after this, I will answer your questions because I keep seeing them pop up. So what does that mean, style? It means kind of like what I was talking about with Nate's. He has a very consistent style. So if someone goes and follows him, they kind of have an idea of what art they can expect from him. And it's because they like that style. And the more that I looked at like the top follower counts from artists on Instagram, and I'll show those in just a minute, they're very consistent. If you go to their page, it's very obvious who it is. Like, I don't even need to say their name. You could look at any one of their top 9 images, and I'll talk about what the top 9 is. But you can look at any of the top 9, and you'll know who that artist is. So having a consistent style that people follow because of that style, and then getting a lot of it, is a very good way to gain followers. And especially if you have a style that's very unique and is something that people can connect with, I think you'll go far, especially if it's quality. And especially with the ones that have the most followers on Instagram, it's like they are doing all of these. The only one that maybe you don't see as much is luck, but that's because a lot of us don't share when we get lucky. And I think that's why I'm going to share when I've gotten lucky in my transparency report, because it'd be very easy for me to be like, oh yeah, just get good and then post a lot. Like, well, what kind of advice is that? That's not really saying much. If anything, I'm going to show when I started gaining a lot of followers, what happened to give me like jumps in my follower count, and how you guys can do the same. Okay, so let me answer some of these questions here. I gotta keep scrolling up. Paladisi says, isn't validation what you get from others and validity is what you have to back you up? Yes, actually that's right. Sorry if I misused the word before. I have a problem of like creating my own words or having my own language that I spit out, and like my roommates are sometimes like, Tim, that's not a word, and I'm like, it is in my world. Nat says, so when are you building a brand and when are you not pushing yourself and just staying in your comfort zone? Great question. And I think if Key was here, she would definitely, because me and her have talked about this heavily and extensively on how when she was doing a lot of unicorns, she was playing the game. She was not pushing herself. She was staying in her comfort zone, and she knew that she would get a consistent amount of likes and followers and comment, whatever it might be. And for her, it was because she was so overwhelmed with conventions. She wasn't wanting to push herself mentally doing new pieces of art. And that was her way of finding balance. And yeah, some people might look at it and be like, well, she didn't push herself, and I'm going to dismiss her because I think an artist should always be pushing themselves. I don't think that's a fair statement. I think it's very easy to look at someone from the outside and not know them and judge them based on what they post, but you don't know what that artist is going through. You don't know what stress that they might be handling. Key did 6 conventions in a row every weekend, back to back to back to back to back to back. And even I was a little hard on her near the end, but then I had a talk with her realizing that, yeah, she was under a lot of pressure just to get her prints done in time. And she tried to have a new unicorn done for every con. So I began to understand why she was doing that. But I do think you have to be conscious of what you're posting, because if you're posting a lot of things that are just in your comfort zone, I do think you will eventually start to lose followers, unless it is, well, see, now this is where I feel like I'm contradicting myself. I feel like artists that see you do that, other artists that see you stay in your comfort zone, they'll be the ones that are disappointed. But for most people, they'll still want to follow you and they'll engage in what you're posting. I think artists are more critical of other artists. So when we look at an artist and we feel like they're plateauing or in their comfort zone, we have this like, they should be pushing more originality, or they should be pushing themselves. And we kind of put on this like critical hat and we just judge them. But in all honesty, I think most people want to see just consistent quality that they know what to expect. They don't like change. Most people don't like change. So by posting something that's consistent, and if it is quality, you'll still gain followers. I think the only thing you might lose is a little respect from other artists. Okay. Christy says, how do you feel about artists who delete a large portion of their photos on Instagram? I've followed a few artists who do this. I have mixed feelings. I'm not aware that people do that, honestly. I've seen some people just like go through and kind of cherry pick ones that don't work for their... I know I've done that a little bit. I've deleted at least 3 images from like way back when, that I'm like, I don't want to show this, or this was a bad post, or I posted this out of insecurity. And yeah, I can kind of understand that, but for a large portion, that's surprising to me. If you have a story to share, I'd love to hear it. I will say, there was one of my friends who is a fashion designer in New York. I grew up with him, and he came to me and was like, hey, how do I get my Instagram count to be growing kind of on the same level that yours is? And I went to his Instagram, and it was kind of all over the place. There was like pictures of him kind of partying it up. He definitely lives more of a lavish lifestyle, and he's a party boy, and he does a lot of these things that are more eccentric and not as focused on art. So I was like, well, if you really want this to be your art account, you're going to have to go through, filter out the pulp of your life, and have it be more focused on art. Because if you want people to respect you for your art, you can't have it be like this chaotic personal account that sometimes has art slipped in. So I think having a separate account for personal art works for some people. I know for me, I don't have enough. I was going to say time, but I hate that excuse. So instead I'll say I don't have enough care or want to create a personal account, because I feel like I just post art on my own account. And if I do want a personal thing, I might go on Facebook. Maybe. I usually don't. I just feel like I'm always surrounded by the people in my life that I want to talk with. So I don't really have a need to like post about it on Instagram of just my personal life, because I'm always doing so much posting for art. So for him, he cleaned it up, made it all black and white, only showed his art, did like really high quality pictures of him with his art, because he does these big 6-foot drawings. And actually, I'll put his name in the chat here. It's Nathan Von Braun. He stole my middle name. He thought it was, or my last name. He thought it was a cool, I guess a cool last name, so he took it. But he really cleaned it up, and I have seen him now gain followers, I think because of the style that he's now producing, and he really created a brand. And we're going to be talking about branding yourself in the stream as well, because I think that is very important. Paladisi says, so would you say it's better to create a separate professional profile, or to transform your already existing account into a professional one and create a personal one? I've seen a few artists transforming their existing personal profiles with success, since they had a already big network. I do think there should be a separation between the two. If you really want a personal and a business account, I would separate them. Tigel says, I'm not the type of person who will post selfies, but I did have travel pictures and life stuff on my Insta as well as art. And I didn't like mixing them, so now I have 2 Instagrams, a personal one and an art one. I think that's a good way to go. I can recommend it. I totally agree. And I think you see it work more often, and then you don't feel like this pressure of, well, can I post it? It's like, well, no, that will be posted on my personal one. And if it's art, it goes on my art Instagram. John Miller says, so is there a way to gain luck for the CG subscription contest? No. I will say you can create your own luck by submitting a quality piece of work in the contest. Ian Green says, so do you think Smogist is growing like mermaid? I actually don't know what Smogist is. You might have to explain what that is in the comments here. Altered Mage says, I joined in a random take for DigiJuly on Instagram and found some other great artists that way. Yeah, see, and you like build this community of other people that are interested in, like, I'm really interested in dark fantasy, and I feel like mermaids, I love that concept, so why not submit my own? And then, yeah, I found a lot of artists just by being inspired by the mermaids they were submitting. So I think it's a great way for artists to connect with other artists. CC the artist says, I am in for Drawtober. Awesome. I am so excited. Me and Key already have the calendar set up, so we will be releasing that hopefully in the next few weeks, and we're really excited to get going on Drawtober. I have never met anyone that likes Halloween more than me, so you have no idea how excited I am to host my own drawing monthly challenge, and especially that it's Halloween themed, it's even better. CC, the artist says, my issue is that I don't really have a style. I work so much on my technical abilities such as observation, anatomy, color theory that I cannot show my personality to connect to my followers and people get bored. I don't know what to do. That's okay. I totally believe that if you practice fundamental skills and technical skills, eventually it will lead to your own style. So maybe if you're doing a lot of life drawing studies, maybe don't post every single one that you do, but make a collection post, especially now that Instagram has a thing where you can swipe and post up to 10 pictures in one single one. Just post 10 of your life drawings in that one single post. If you're doing hand studies, maybe collect them in a bunch and then post them as one post. I think it helps kind of organizing it that way, and that way when you do a bigger piece, a quality one, it doesn't get lost among studies or smaller pieces. CC says, oh, no, it's a repeat question. Chrissy says, well, I won't mention the artist's name, but I was following this one artist who deleted almost half of their artwork, and I think one reason they did it is to freshen up their profile and so that there is less of a chance of their art being stolen on Instagram. Oh, yeah, I guess art theft it's definitely an issue. I have had my art stolen so many times now, and people will send me messages on Instagram being like, hey, this person stole your art. As much as I appreciate, I appreciate that they told me just so I can at least recognize it and be aware of it. But there's really nothing that I can do besides maybe send them a letter asking them to take it down. But it happens so frequently, and I don't want to be an artist that doesn't really showcase their work. I don't want to be one of those that puts giant watermarks on their work. So in that case, I think just understand that if they're stealing it, this is going to sound really obscure, but you almost have to take it as a compliment. Just that they like your work enough to present it in a way that they're trying to trick people into thinking it's their own. And it's really gross. I do not support it at all, but there's very little that I can do. I can try my best to get it taken down, but instead I've kind of learned to just shrug it off, keep moving, and keep posting, because I feel like I'm inspiring more people than having my inspire people to steal it. Zaindral said, Smogist seems like mermaid, but for dragons, and it's in August. It seems rad, and I don't know how I haven't seen it before. Yeah, I've never heard of it, but thank you for answering it. I guess you answered my question. Smogist is to draw a dragon every day for the month of August. And I know that one of our cookie followers, Faith, is doing her own August one, where it's more of the foliage tree. It's Arbor August, I believe it's called. And it's the idea of it taking more of a woodland approach and then transforming every day a character of something that's fantastical, but has to do with trees in some way. Okay, I'm going to do 2 more, and then we're going to get back into this. Ella says, you actually responded to one of my posts, and I got so overwhelmed and shocked, so I didn't respond. I feel so bad because of that. No, it's okay. I try to connect with my users outside of streams as well. Like I said, I do respond to messages. It just sometimes takes me like a month. But anytime someone will constantly like post on my work and then be like, I was going to talk about this a little later, but maybe I'll mention it here. If you want to get in touch with a bigger name artist, start complimenting their work. Flattery will get you everywhere. You hear that all the time, but I see it happening, especially with some of the artists in my life that I look up to, even like Alan Williams. I usually put a comment on his work, or even Oh No Natalie, who's a tattoo artist. I comment on her work, and now we, from time to time, do direct messages. And it's one of those things where a lot of it, I think, stem from me not asking them for something, being like, hey, can you review my work? Instead, complimenting their work and maybe letting them know how it actually made you feel, and be genuine. I don't think being fake will actually make a good connection. You have to be genuine with what you post. And then over time, yeah, they might recognize your name. They see your handle pop up so many times that they start to recognize you as like one of their biggest followers. And that's why whenever I see Alan post, I would say like 99 times out of 100, I'm going to like it. There's been a few times where I'm like, I'm not crazy about it, but 99% of the time, yeah, I'm in love with what he does. So I'll like it. I'll usually leave a comment. And that way it's a consistent handle that is popping up on his side that he can now recognize my name. Okay. Oh, the last question was, John Miller says, so can I steal your art and print it out for myself? No. I'm telling you no, but people do it anyways. And I think art theft is a problem. So I can say no all I want, but it's up to you and your moral conscience not to do it, John Miller. Okay. Moving on to the next slide. Okay, transparency. So I'm going to show you guys, because I don't believe in like having a veil of any, like not showing or being honest with you or being genuine in any way. So I am kind of a psycho. My friends think I'm crazy. I love numbers. I've always been kind of a math person. I think that's why doing conventions is fun for me, because I love playing the game of getting your numbers down, your like your printing cost, how you can create more profit from your gross profit, things like that, how to have lower, why can't I think of the word? I always use it too. Well, anyways, I have been keeping track of the numbers of my follower count on Facebook, DeviantArt, Tumblr, Twitter, Gram, Instagram, and Twitch for years now. I think this goes on since 2012. And I took it a little more serious last year, but even more so in 2015. So I started my 2015, my Instagram, pretty much late 2014. But essentially, if you see this row here, I know it's probably kind of small. Let me make it bigger. Got it. Thank you. Okay. So here's my Instagram. I started in late 2014. So I'm just going to say we started in 2015. And you can see I had low numbers. It was started at 179. And this went on for a very long time. And I think I wrote, let me see, I did the numbers, of course, because I like crunching numbers. I went to do, in 2015, I usually gained between 30 and 50 followers per week. I was posting about 2 times a week, usually 1, I would say, and that was consistent all through 2015. And at the end of the year, I ended with just under 2,000. And if you think this is a little much, trust me, I understand. I don't expect you guys to keep a Google Doc of your follower counts every Monday. But I think just for me, it helps me see things a little clearer. And even for like the sake of the stream, you guys can then see true jumps, and the numbers don't lie. That's one thing. Maybe that's why I like numbers. They never lie. So then 2016 happens. Okay, so I'm starting at like 2,000 followers, and I'm still kind of hit at that 50 to 100 a week. Typically more around 50, especially near the first half of the year. And I'm still posting regularly. And to me, these are huge gains. Anytime I hit 1,000 more on Instagram, it was so unbelievably, it just made me feel like I was doing something right. And I hate that Instagram can give you that kind of satisfaction, but it does. Or at least it does for me. And honestly, it motivated me to post more and to work more often. And I think through this, I became more familiar with branding my work and having a very consistent page. And I think as we go down here, you can see how even before my big jumps, and I'll talk about what those big jumps were, I was still having more of an uphill gaining per week. I was getting more followers per week. So let me show you guys. So I'm going to show you where my first jump was. So I'm just going to go to lovely Instagram. And we are just going to scroll down for a second here. Because the first jump was very unexpected. I was still gaining about 50 to 100 a week. And then all of a sudden, I posted this image that to me meant nothing. It was like one of those that I was even debating whether or not to post it. So it was right here. This is when I was around 5,000 followers. This is the post that sent me over the edge. I was getting around 1,000 likes per image. And then all of a sudden I posted this one. It was literally before we went out with my friends. I was like, you know what, guys, let me just post this drawing I did for the traditional course I'm doing right now, and then we can go. So I posted it. I didn't even really give it much thought. My most liked image for almost a year and a half. And it was, 6,800 likes. And I went from 5,700 to about 7,300. And that even carried over into the next week, where I would say it had more of like, what did I write here? It was a big jump. I would say average, it was probably around in the end, like 2,000, just over 2,000. So getting 2,000 followers over one image, to me, this is lucky. And this goes back to what I was talking about before, where I got really lucky on that post. Who knew that this simple drawing of Cara Delevingne and having a kind of stylized versus realism shot, like I would have never thought this would be an image to really blow up. So that was my first lucky instance. So then things kept going really well for me over the next couple of weeks, I think, because of the amount of traction I was getting with people coming to my page and the way that Instagram works and how their analytics work. I think I was just getting a lot more traffic directed toward my page. And then after, let's see here, 2 months, this is when Loesch shared one of my images. Now, if you guys don't know who Loesch is, she is one of the, I guess, most well-known digital artists in today's day and age. She is a fantastic artist, in my opinion, that had a Kickstarter a couple years ago. I got one of the tiers where I commissioned her to draw Red. She did a drawing of Red, and she shared it on this date. I went from 12,000 to 16,000 in less than a week and a half. And do I attribute that to her sharing my image? Absolutely. I don't think there would be any other reason, especially since I keep track of my numbers, of why that happened. I didn't post anything spectacularly different than what I normally did over that course. And then having her share that, it just really kicked a lot of momentum. And this is where I think luck really came in hand. So when she shared that image, it was literally right at the end of September. And then October, all through the month, I did Drawloween. So that entire month, I was posting something every day, and I was gaining a lot of followers consistently just based on Drawloween. I keep wanting to call it Drawtober because that's what me and Kia are running, but no, it was Drawloween. And then after Drawloween was over, I really didn't post that much. I had a few images, but Drawloween really carried me through till the end of the year. And it went from, it was probably around 15 to 16,000 to 20,000 just based off Drawloween. So even though I'm not doing Drawloween this year, I'm doing Drawtober, I do give a lot of thanks to Drawloween for giving me exposure, and I think a lot of people were looking at that hashtag and finding me because of it. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying create your own luck. Okay, and then the last thing that I want to share before getting off of this Google chart, I know a lot of you are like, get these numbers out of my face. So even with this year, from what I've learned, I have gone from 20,000 and now I'm sitting at 36. And my goal for the end of the year was to hit 40. And if the numbers have told me anything, I should hit that, especially with Drawtober around the corner. So yeah, I do think I have learned from my mistakes and what has worked, but a lot of it has been luck and then putting myself in scenarios where I can get lucky. So I think with you guys, and then this is Bobby Chu's video I wanted to share it with you guys, because I think everything but his number 3 I believe in. I believe in number 3 on a personal level, but I think in terms of gaining a following, I think sometimes that can throw people off, especially those that want to watch or see consistency out of the style that you create. Okay, so I guess the last thing that I want to share with transparency is I have noticed I have gained a lot of followers, a lot of likes, and a lot of comments on images that I may not have been the most proud of. And I need you guys to understand that you cannot dictate what will do well and what won't. And you will be surprised sometimes by what your most liked images are and maybe what images you spent a lot of time and effort and you thought was going to be like your creme de la creme, you're the top picture that you could ever draw that year, doesn't really gain much traction at all. And that's okay. I would say even for this year, this has been the piece that I've spent the most time on by far. But yeah, it's sitting at at 3,800 likes, and that's, I mean, it's a little below the average. But then something like this little bird head I drew when I was talking to my home insurance agent, it has 6,000. And I would have never thought this little bird head drawing that I drew in a half hour would be better than the image that took me literally like 25 hours. So you never know. And I think it's because it's bold, it's simple, it's easy to digest, and it's like an insta-like. And you'll kind of come to realize that this is playing the game now. When you start drawing things that you know are easy for someone to digest and they'll like it just based on like a simple factor. Like for this drawing, I think it's a fun beak with like a crack in it, and then that eye is kind of enticing. Those two things already created a lot of likes in a lot of people's minds. So this is when you start playing the game. Now, I try not to post based on playing the game, but this drawing I think is my best example of I was playing the game. I wanted to draw Christina because I know her hair gets a lot of attention, and I wanted to calm down that day. It was like a relaxing thing for me. So I drew her, and lo and behold, yeah, it got above my average, and I got a couple hundred followers from that. So don't always think of playing the game as such like an evil, like you're a tycoon just trying to get as much followers as you can. I think sometimes it's like you need to relax and de-stress, because if you're always pushing yourself, I do think you'll burn out or you'll create work that isn't your best quality because you're not fully mentally in it. And I think as just a surprise for you, oh, and then here was my mermaid I did for Mermaid. This is what I was talking about earlier, and I had a lot of fun doing it. Actually, how many? Yeah, so see, this is definitely above my average, and I think part of it was because of that hashtag. So this is currently my #1 liked image. It has over 14,000 likes, and did I think this would be my most liked image ever? No. I mean, of course not. I thought it would be a fun drawing, but it's, in my opinion, it's kind of weird, and some people might think it is scary, but lo and behold, it surprised me, and it became my most liked image, and this got me a lot of followers. So I think there are times where you might be playing the game and not even knowing it. And with this image in particular, I've had even a few people get this tattooed, and it's been so surprising, but a lot of people saw it as a race thing. And I didn't even realize that a lot of people saw it as this kind of piece between these two kids, one white and one black. And I've heard so many people, they've sent me stories of what this image meant to them. So without even realizing it, I thought it was just a cool image, and the contrast between the values, I wanted there to be dark and light. But for a lot of people, it resonated with them on a different level. So sometimes you will create art that will actually be way deeper than you may have even intended it to be. So just keep that in mind and don't feel like you have to cater yourself to what's popular or only doing things like that bird beak that I just showed you guys, this one, because it's an Insta like, as some people would say. To me, this bird is just fun. Like, I don't know, I had fun doing it, and that's why I posted it. All right, let me get this out of here. Okay, so I think we're moving on to, how much time do I have left? Ooh, like 45 minutes. I've really been blabbering. I'm sorry. Okay. You know what? The next part that I'm going to talk about then, here we go. I think this is the right thing to talk about now. So I'm going to be looking at people that have a lot of followers and also a lot of artists that I look up to and respect. So on this chart alone, if you guys don't know the names of the people on the right, I would definitely give them a look up. These are some of the ones that I was scrolling through my Instagram and just seeing a lot of the artists I look up to and respect, especially people like Brahm. Oh, that's supposed to be Costa, not Kos. He's been one of my new favorite artists to follow. If you know Miles Johnston, a lot of people compare, I think, our styles just because we both work in pencil, but I definitely look up to Miles. He's a fantastic artist. And actually, even one of my new good friends, Peter Moorbacher, it's funny calling him Peter Moorbacher. To me, he's Pete. And then Dice, he did the Dam Keeper. I love it. And even like the Masters, when you think of like James Gurney and Justin Gerard, or even, I would say, Carla Ortiz. A lot of these people that are more of like spectrum level, and they've won awards based on their work and their quality of work. So even just from them alone, I think you guys should check them out. But as I was going through this, I was very surprised by a lot of their numbers. So the ones on the left, if you kind of already can guess, the reason that they're bigger isn't just a coincidence. So these artists on the left, if you know any of them, or you probably should, or if you haven't heard of them, I'm sure you will at some point in your career. These are artists that have kind of established themselves and have really taken social media on a whole nother level. So I think first I want to, which one do I want to reveal first? You know what? No, first I'm going to reveal the right side of artists. So these are artists that I would just assume have some of the top follower counts on Instagram. Let me just show you their numbers. And some of these might surprise you, especially, like I mentioned earlier, Brahm. Brahm is like one of the most famous fantasy artists in the field still working today. And the fact that he only has 13,000 followers is not a reflection of his quality, of his background, of his work up to this point. If it was up to me, he would be one of the top follower counts easily. But I think part of it, and I'll talk about why in just a second. I was going to ramble into that, but there's a reason why some of these are so low. Even like Dice Tsunami, or Susumi, I don't know why I said Tsunami. He is a director that works at, now he owns Tonko House, but he used to be a Pixar artist. He's a big name, and he worked at, I believe it was Schoolism, doing the color and light guide or class. And he is a fantastic artist. I've watched a lot of his lectures. He knows what's up, and he's a very good artist. Do I think 15.7 reflects his quality? No. Do I think numbers should reflect someone's quality? No. This does reflect something else, because I think it's very easy to get the mentality of, if you have more followers, that means you're a better artist. And I have to keep reiterating that's definitely not true. But I will say, if they have more followers, that does say something. It doesn't mean necessarily that they are a better artist, but that does say something about them. So now looking at the artists on the left, you would think, okay, well, if Tim showed me these first, that means that there's probably something going on with the ones on the left. So these are the ones that have really made a name for themselves. I feel like anything over 300,000 is a big deal in terms of how they're branding themselves and what they're doing, and then taking a look at how they're gaining followers, seeing what works, and I guess seeing what could work in your own way. I don't think just copying them is going to work. Well, maybe it will. You never know. You got to experiment. You really just got to experiment. But the one that really surprised me is I always thought Sakimi and Loesch were kind of the most well-known digital artists and would have the most followers. But, and actually, if you guys have any that are over 1 million, I didn't realize this. Kushinov has over 1 million. He has over 1 million followers. And if you look at their page, it is very consistent. They post often, and it's quality. Whether or not you like the style is subjective. The fact that he is posting, or I believe it's a he. If it's a she, I'm really sorry, but I believe it's a he. The fact that he is posting, like, I would say almost every day, and it's usually like a headshot of the same type of look of a girl, but he does it consistently, and it's a quality post. And whether or not you like it or not, it comes down to taste a little bit, but it is quality in its own regard. It might not be like this giant epic of a dragon fighting a knight or anything like that, but in what it is, it's kind of like the bird that I was talking about that I did. It's simple, it's easy to digest, and it's like an Insta-like. And there's a lot to be said about doing art that's more of an Insta-like versus doing art that is more epic, more unable to be understood at first glance. So this is definitely this was very surprising to me. And I think some of them weren't as surprising, like Ross. It had no surprise that he has over 300,000 followers. I think more or less the surprising ones for me were the ones that didn't have as much, especially like Cynics. I find that he is a fantastic artist, and I think he's really underrated. And the fact that he only has 16,000 followers, like I said, doesn't reflect that he does bad art or anything. I just feel like he does play the social game with YouTube, and I think that's going to carry into what I'm about to talk about on how social media almost becomes like a full-time job. And I think if you treat it like that, you'll see a response in your numbers. So the reason that a lot of the Sakimi, I don't know if I would put Loesch under that category because I feel like she's doing a lot of work on the side. But I would definitely say Kushinov and Ross Draws, they're all, it's like that's their full-time job, and they're really playing it up. They're having it be more entertaining. A lot of their posts might be a bit more simpler, but they're recognizable. Sometimes it's fan art. Actually, a lot of the times, especially with Ross and Sakimi, it is fan art. So it's easier to connect with because it's instantly recognizable. And even with like Ross, I feel like his videos are very entertaining. He adds the special effects on them. He makes them more of something you'd want to watch or something that is fun to watch. And I think with a lot of artists, we're so serious all the time that I think that's part of the reason he has gained such traction is because they are fun and he's posting art that people want to see. So then in terms of like the guys on the right, the reason a lot of them don't have these crazy numbers is because they have full-time jobs. A lot of them are doing either freelance work, they're working at big game studios or animation houses. A lot of the times they can't even share their work. It's under contract that they can't. And I even think with the ones that are doing more work for themselves, like the Wiley Beckerts, 70,000 is still a lot. Well, thank you for following. 70,000 is still a lot of followers, and that's nothing to take lightly. But in comparison to like the 1 million, yeah, you can definitely compare and contrast, but Wiley is a widely successful artist that is renowned and respected by a lot of artists in the community. And I think that there's a difference between being respected in the community and being liked in the community. So I think there are a lot of artists that might have a lot of followers because a lot of people that aren't artists like them, but then having a lot of people that are in the art community that still like them. And that's not excluding these. I don't want it to be like, you're either this type of artist or this art. I feel like that's not the case with here. I'm just comparing numbers. But I definitely feel like, for me personally, I look at Susumi. God, I keep saying that. I look at him as such a role model and such a fantastic artist. And just because I have more followers than him doesn't mean a thing. It just means that I am playing more of the social media game than he is. And maybe he doesn't care as much because he is successful in his own right already. He's even been nominated for an Academy Award. So it's like, why would he want to play the social media game unless if he wanted more exposure? But obviously he's already getting enough exposure if he's nominated for an award on that level of prestige. Okay, so I think that was more or less just an interesting thing to find, and I think before I go into the playing the game section where I'm going to be talking about, I think a lot of the questions that you guys will probably have about like branding yourself, how to do all these other type of things. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. The last thing I wanted to say though with these artists is Instagram stats. So let me make a new layer here. Okay, so this I found really interesting, and I think something that you may find useful, maybe you don't, but there are 700 million users that are active on Instagram. So that's a lot. So then I think if you look at your follower count, you're like, okay, then there's definitely a bigger pool of people that I can get attention from. Unless if you have 700 million followers, then you're like, well, I guess that's it. I don't have any more people to follow me. I'm just the most popular person in the world. And actually, the most popular one, I wrote it down somewhere. Hold on. So the most popular one has 113 million. So I am actually going to have you guys guess. If any of you know, or there might be a few of you that actually know, but take a guess. Who do you think is the #1 person on Instagram? And while I'm waiting for those questions, or for those answers or those guesses, I'll talk about a few more stats. 68% of users on Instagram are female. So what could that mean for you? Maybe nothing. Maybe that stat means nothing to you. But that does mean that art that is more, I don't want to say catered toward women, but I do think the reason you see like Kushinov have so many followers is he draws really pretty females and he posts them constantly. And I just, from the friends that I have that are girls, they do follow a lot of artists that draw girls. And I thought that was an interesting stat. And I think this one more or less solidified it in my mind of, okay, not that it should mean you should change your work up, because I don't think gender has a preference for what type of art you want to see, but you just see things that are, I would say, more consistent. So like Key and Sean have more female followers. And then you look at their art and you might start to question, okay, well, why is that? Or then if you look at like Tyler's account, Sketch Geek, he has more male followers. Same with Gabe, my other roommate. And yeah, do I think that correlates to the art they're producing? Yeah. Do I think some of it would be considered more masculine, if we still want to say that? Yeah. And do I think I have more female followers because a lot of my art has been considered sensitive or feminine or softer? Yeah. And if people want to label my art as that, I don't care. And just the fact that I have more female followers, I really don't care. It could be 100% female, it could be 100% male. I really don't care. They're people, in my opinion, and I'm going to create art that I want to create. And it goes back to the don't cater your art toward one demographic. But I thought that was an interesting statistic. Okay, so let's see what all of you guys are guessing here. I honestly thought it was going to be a Kardashian. I thought for sure. I thought it was going to be Kylie, actually. Kylie Jenner, not a Kardashian, I should mention. Donald Trump, no. No, definitely not Donald Trump. Someone got it. So congratulations, Ella. It is actually Selena Gomez. Who'd have thunk, right? I definitely didn't, but you definitely did. So yeah. And yeah, Instagram is the #2. I think it is what I found out. So Instagram has their own account and you can follow Instagram. Okay. And the last few stats, I mean, these, you can take them as they are. I don't think you have to adjust what you're doing, but I think it's just interesting. The optimal amount of hashtags used is 11. They say more than that, the direct activity between what's that word? It's not transactions, that's the wrong one. Activity, I don't think that's the word either, but the activity goes down after 11, and usually the less hashtags you use, the more activity, but 11 is prime if you still want to add a lot of hashtags, but you still want to get the most bang for your buck. They say at least use one. Oops. One hashtag gets you 12% more recognition than not using a hashtag. And I should mention all these stats I found at omnicoreagency.com. I get frustrated when people don't share where they're getting their statistics from. It's like, well, are you just making these up? The last one that I have, actually, I'm going to ask you guys, where do you think most people in the world are that use Instagram? This one we found very interesting. And my roommates actually didn't believe it. We had to look this one up on multiple websites to kind of confirm it. So 80% of the world well, you know what? I'll give you guys a second to guess. Let me see if I have another statistic here. Oh yeah, and then out of those 700 million, 400, so almost a little more than half, are daily. And I would be definitely lying to you if I didn't say I am a daily Instagram person. I check it, I would say at least 2 or 3 times minimum. Okay, so you guys are thinking Europe, USA, China, India. So it's like thinking of the highest population concentration. But we all thought in the house it was the United States. It could just be because we're uninformed, which obviously we were. But 20% are from USA. So only a fifth of people using Instagram are from America. The world outside of the US, it consists of 80%. Now that gets broken down. We couldn't find a really good chart that explained it the best, but this statistic was the one that was consistent through all the sites we found. 80% is from the rest of the world. And here we all thought that USA was, using Instagram the most. But I think it was just our ignorance that caused us to believe it. So catering to just one country, thinking that it's the most used on Instagram is actually a bad thing. You want to make your work and your Instagram as global as possible. And I think we are very lucky being in a industry where we're a visual language to begin with. I don't need to speak your language to want to follow you and your work. I will appreciate the work that you post, even though I can't understand the description that you're posting underneath of it. So something to keep in mind. And it also told me that maybe most of people that use Instagram don't speak English. Now, I know that there are a lot of areas in the world that have learned English, especially in Europe and in actually many countries now around the world. They're learning English as a second language. But I would still say the majority, well, you know what? I shouldn't say that. I actually don't know. But I will say a good chunk of the world does not know English. So having your art cater to only English, well, and that's, you know what? I'm not going to contradict myself. Art is a visual language. So don't feel like you have to cater to an English-speaking Instagram account to get followers. You really don't. Just have quality work like we talked in the beginning. Okay, so I think I'm going to answer questions and then we're going to get into the last portion here. And this is going to be playing the game. So me and Key joke about this all the time on when an artist is playing the game. And sometimes even when we do art, we feel like we're playing the game. And this doesn't have to be a bad thing. I think sometimes I've been labeling this as like a negative connotation, but it really isn't. So like even with Drawtober, yeah, it's playing the game. We want it. It's fun. It's supposed to be something where, yeah, you're gaining followers, you're gaining more exposure, but in the process, you're doing something that you genuinely enjoy doing. And I think if that is the core of it, if there is like an authentic fun and joy that you get from doing it, then to me, I don't care if you're playing the game. And I feel like with Beatrice doing her childhood week, she probably had a blast. And yeah, did that get her a lot of exposure? Absolutely. Was it well deserved? Yes. She did it on her own. She went out of her way to create this fun week for other people to enjoy it. So for her to get followers from that, I say she deserved it. She earned it. And I think with Drawtober, yeah, we want to have fun too. We want to enjoy the game. And there comes a point where there is a balance, and I think that's something I've repeated a lot too, but we're going to talk about that later after we talk about different points of playing the game. So let me go ahead and answer questions really quick. Let me scroll way up here. Oh no, I have not heard of. I'm gonna have to write that down. Faith says Cyrene has 1.3 on Instagram million. And Piccolo, I don't think I know Piccolo either. I'm gonna have to look them up. Oh, it's okay, Faith, that you're late. Just glad that you came. Paladisi says, I love Brahm. His novels are masterpieces. Got them all in first print. Oh, Brahm is such an inspiration for me, especially not the last book, the one before it. The one, why can't I think of the, man, I've been really bad with names today. I mean, I know I'm usually not the best, but today it's like double as bad. Plucker. I have Plucker. I love Plucker. I think that's my favorite book, but I haven't read the new one. Tijel says, I met Loesch at FAX last year. She might come this year as well, so you might meet her. Oh my gosh, that would be so amazing if I met Loesch. I've talked to her on email a few times, and man, she is just such a sweet, genuine person. John Miller says, when will you have prints available of your Woodland Youth? You know what? I've had so many people ask me that. I think I'll put them up later this month once I get my books, and then I'll send those out. Ella says, Woodland Youth is my favorite piece of yours. I'm in love with the details. Well, thank you, guys. Unibraska says, I have a question. Are you guys going to do some kind of video about what to put on your Redbubble and what sells or something? Because I'm lost on what to put on my shop. Yes, I think that would be a stream all in itself. I think creating your own Etsy or your Redbubble or whatever it might be to sell your product. We'll talk about what has worked for us, what hasn't. The thing that I've noticed that has worked for me is doing like a flash sale. So once again, why it's important to gain followers is I put a flash sale on my Instagram where I was selling 10 prints of my merman that I did. And within 2 hours, they sold out. And I think that was the direct result of having a following on Instagram. Let's see here. Laura says it was the most obvious answer after all. Yeah. Miss Chibiar says, I was wondering about what the best time of day to post on Instagram, especially since there are followers from all over the world. Is there a good time of day that you post? I always post, well, not always. I would say 90% of the time I post between midnight and 2 a.m. This way, and this is my reasoning behind it, is people that are just going to bed, they may or may not see it, they might miss it, but I'll probably be near the top of their feed for, at least this is for like America and like that location on the map of the world. They'll see it in the morning. But then for all the people that follow me outside of America, because as we learned, 80% of Instagram users are from around the world, they'll see it right away because I'm posting at 2 a.m. So for them, it is like in the morning or afternoon. So it is more of a optimal time for them to see it, especially when people wake up and right before they go to bed or right after work. Those are typically the three that people talk about of checking Instagram the most. And they usually say Wednesday is the best day, with the weekends being the worst. Now, has one of my images carried on strong even if it's been posted on Saturday at 7 p.m.? Yes. I do think there's something to be said that if it's still quality, it will get its way around, you know? I think, yeah, more people might be on it, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll generate more likes. You will get more exposure, so that tends to lead to more likes and comments and followers, whatever it might be. But don't rely on a time slot to get you more followers. Always rely on the quality of your work. But I would say it has worked for me very well posting between midnight and 2 a.m. Central Time with all my work. And I feel like I've seen it work consistently versus when I post during the day. I do notice a little bit more activity. And in a weird way, I love waking up to seeing the comments and seeing the reaction that the post got. It's always like a surprise. You go to bed thinking, oh, I wonder how people will react to it. And you wake up and you see, and Made those few times that you're like, man, this did not get any likes and comments, and you're like, well, at least in my mind, I'm like, well, that means you gotta work harder on the next one. Litchilian? Sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I know I'm saying that wrong. It says, I was wondering what are the popular hashtags to use to get your work noticed. I sucks at them. There's a website that you can type in different hashtags and see like how many they have, or even on Instagram, if you're on your phone and you're posting, you can see how many times that post has been posted before. And usually the more popular ones are the ones you want to go for. I think the ones that I always see that are really big are like drawing, art, artist, Insta art. I have like a consistent ones that I always post. So it's like pencil sketch, traditional drawing, traditional sketch. Actually, I bet I can name all of them if I went through it. So it's Tim Von Rieden, Von Art, art, artist, draw, drawing, sketch, sketchbook, traditional art, traditional artist, original art, original artist, pencil sketch, pencil drawing, draw, drawing, Insta art, Insta artist. And then if there's like one specific to what I'm posting, then I'll post those. But after learning that 11 is the optimal hashtag use, I'll probably cut down a little bit and see if that works. And even me saying that right now, that's the perfect example of experimenting. So you know what? The number one thing, experiment. I think doing things like Mermay and October or Drawltober and things that are trending can be put under this category as well, because you don't know how well they're going to do. You're experimenting. I think some drawings you kind of have an idea of how well they'll do. Maybe it'll surprise you. Maybe it'll underwhelm you. But when you experiment, you have no idea how well it's going to be received by people. And I feel that way all the time when I'm posting anything digital, because I'm like, well, I know people follow me for my pencil sketches, and I always see a worse reaction to digital. So I always get a little nervous, but you can't cater yourself to people that follow you. If they really are following you for your work and who you are as an artist, they'll follow you regardless of if you're having an off drawing, or if you want to experiment with digital, or if you want to experiment with a different medium. Usually having in the description, like, hey, I'm trying out oils for the first time. Like if you give them some explanation as to why you're trying something very new, they'll not only will they be forgiving, but they'll be inspired. And I think this goes back to like artists judging other artists. We love to see when other artists try different mediums and do new styles. But when they're using like the same medium and the same style, we have like this weird perception that we can critique them. But it's like, you know what? Take a look at yourself first. And like, are you really trying new mediums? If not, I don't think you have any place to judge. Okay. Before I know there's probably a lot of questions, but let me talk about a few of these because I know I'm running low on time now. The first thing, branding. I think this one should be more obvious, but I feel like I am constantly talking to my students on how to create a successful branding. The number one thing, being consistent. That means if you choose a handle, that better be your handle everywhere. I think even for myself, I'm so upset that someone has my DeviantArt handle, VonArt, because everywhere else I've been able to get it. And I'm talking like Twitch, Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, Google+, Facebook, anywhere, it's VonArt. And when I look at my name, some people might read it as like Von Nart, but most people kind of get that, yeah, there's art on the back end of Von. Von is probably the artist. So I think having your name in it is actually super helpful. Just having your name. I think if I had to go back and rebrand myself, I think I still would choose Von Art because I'm a very stubborn person. But the ones that just have their name, they're never going to change their name, usually. If you choose your name, that is something that you can carry with you and you'll never regret picking that name. I've seen some artists that have not regretted but changed their name. I'm thinking of like Purple Kekleon when she was Purple Kekleon and then changed to Glitched Puppet. If you know who this artist is, she had a lot of branding issues because she had a book that was coming out and it used to have Purple Kekleon as the author. And then she decided to change her name kind of around the same time. So for her, it was an issue that she had to deal with. But if you have your name and that's what you start with, I mean, you're good. You'll never, I mean, yeah, you could choose a tagline, but you'll never regret having your name on it. So I think having your name is probably the best way to go about it. If I was honest with you, it's probably the best way to go about doing it. I think having art or illustrations or something related to art in your title may help as well. The ones that I see that don't work are the ones that are confusing or the ones that you don't quite understand how to spell it or say it. Especially one of my friends, I know we bring this up all the time, but his name is Pooey. And then his handle is Pooey. It's supposed to be Pooey Illustrated, but he combined the I. So it looks very weird. It's like, it looks like quill, but like Quillstrated or something. So I think you have to be very aware that if your name ends in an I, maybe illustrations or illustrated after it might be a bit tough for people. If it ends in an A, if your name was like Sarah, and then you also wanted art, it may look a little strange where it might look like Sarart instead of Sarah Art. So something just be a little aware of. And then I have seen names that have been weird that have been fine. I think Key having her name be Gawky, I think it's definitely stuck. Or even Feverworm. I've followed Feverworm for so long now, and I used to know her as Chaotic Muffin, and then she did a change into Feverworm, but it's worked for her as well. So having a name that isn't your name doesn't mean it won't work. It just means there might be more of a branding thing that you have to take into account as well. Or even, well, no, I think Brahm is actually his last name, but Jimbo Box is not, or Jimbo is not his name. I believe it's James, I want to say. That might be wrong, but Jimbo Box is like another one of those names that he just made up. Or even Alan Williams. He's not Alan Williams on Instagram. He's I_just_draw. So thankfully he has such a following to begin with that it wasn't a problem for him. But just starting off, if it was just I_just_draw, I mean, that could be anyone. And I think that's why you want it to be as specific as possible without confusion. The next thing is your profile image. So actually, you know what? This can kind of go under branding too. So having an image that reflects who you are. I've had the same image for 5 years now, and I've used that everywhere. That's why if anyone sees that image, they know it's Von Art, and they know that it's art that I'm producing. So I'll probably change it in the next year, but it's been nice having a consistent image on every platform, on all my Facebook, DeviantArt, Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, whatever. And having that image stand as me. It identifies me as a brand. And having that be consistent through all of them is a good thing to do. We already talked about separating personal and your art. I think the whole thing with personal posts versus art posts, I mean, we already talked about it. I won't talk about it too much. But if you do want to still post personal on your art page, they have stories now on Instagram. It has been like my best friend, because then I can show like in progress, or if I'm doing something fun with my friends, I can post it on a story. And people usually won't unfollow people for stories. I've heard some people do, but for the most part, if they don't want to check out your story, they'll just swipe right, or they'll keep going through other people's stories. So I don't have to talk more about personal versus art there. Don't cater. I think playing the game often sounds like you're catering to other people, but the difference is kind of like what we talked about. I want to do Drawtober. Yeah, it's playing the game. I definitely think I'll probably get a lot of exposure from it, and maybe I'll get a lot of followers. Maybe not. I'm taking an educated guess here that it might, or that it should work, but it could still fail. And that kind of goes back to the first thing. You got to experiment. If you're not willing to try, then you can't succeed either. It's like, what's that quote that people actually hate? It's like you'll miss every shot you don't take. And yeah, I know that there's some discussion on whether a quote is viable or not. But I think what you can take away from that is you can't expect to win at a game that you're not competing in. It's that kind of mentality that a lot of artists fall under, where they're looking for luck to come to them. Or here's the best example. I love the Imagine FX magazines. I was always kind of hoping they would reach out eventually to me. Not now, but like eventually they would hopefully recognize me on some level. And then I was like, you know what? I'm done waiting for other people to recognize me. You know what? Instead, let me send an email and just see where it takes me. And then I got into that sketchbook edition that they had last year. And I was in the volume with Alan Williams and Carla Ortiz and all these artists that I respect. And I was like, you know, it just took that first email. So you create your own luck. You're not looking for people to reach out to you. You're reaching out to other people. So don't cater. I feel like me and Key especially battle this all the time, where she will be like, you know what, I'm just going to do another unicorn. Or I'll be like, you know what, I'm just going to do a pretty bust in profile of someone with horns. And there are times where it is just therapeutic. I want to draw something that is easy, that's fun. I'm not saying this is the only thing that I'm going to post, but every now and then I do feel like I am playing the game. And I am posting art that I'm not challenging myself, but I'm essentially creating art that I know is what people are looking for and why they probably followed my account in the first place. So there has to be that balance. I think if you only did that, you lose your artistic, not only your artistic drive, but in a lot of ways, people will say your artistic integrity has fallen a little bit. Absolutely. The next one was experiment. Or no, I'm sorry. That was my number one. And Danny Diaz was my best example. And what this does, it gives you insight. So I'm also going to write that one down. So like, let's say you do a lot of posts that have videos or GIFs or in progress pictures or pictures with a pencil versus without. I know that sounds crazy, but I actually got a lot more likes on pictures when I started placing a pencil on my traditional posts. Could it have been just a coincidence? Maybe, but it's something where I'm like, man, it kind of has proven itself over 5 images. I think having the pencil in it may actually help, or having like my hand in it with a slightly different angle. Sean, my other roommate, Art of Price, he always jokes about having the Instagram post of like, it's at a super angle. You can see like a cropped version of it. You see your hand drawing it. And it's like, it's a pretty picture, but it's not showcasing the art. It's kind of showcasing this pretty picture of you working on the art. And yeah, that's playing the game, you know, and you're recognizing what has worked and you're continuing to go forward with it. So playing the game doesn't have to be a bad thing. And I feel like I have to keep reiterating that. Like and comment on artists you admire. Like we were talking about before, if you want to get noticed by them, if you want to get noticed by them, having a handle that is consistently coming up on their feed will definitely give you a higher chance of being noticed. I won't say it will, but it'll definitely give you a better chance. And actually, Bobby even talked about this, how he will recognize artists that constantly comment on his stuff. And that's why I do share his videos when they post on my own Twitter. And then, yeah, he likes them and responds. And already you open up a conversation then that could continue forward. Maybe it won't, but even the fact that you got your foot in that door, that says something right there. Oh, here's a big one. Have it feel professional. So I'm going to put professionally done maybe. And this is where theming it might be your best case here. So you see a lot of people that do different things on their Instagram page, and you see some that will do like the 3 pictures in a row, so it looks like a row on their page. And I personally am not the biggest fan of that. I think because then you have like 3 segmented, isolated images that no one is going to comment or like individually usually, but they like how it looks on their page. But it does look, it gives a nice, interesting look to the page when it's all done. But what I mean by professionally done, when you take photos of your work, try your best for the highest quality work or picture that you can get. Let me take a sip of tea here. Okay, so one of the things that I learned from looking up my statistics on Instagram was having a consistent filter is very, it's not important. What was the word that they used? It was said that like 65% of companies that are higher up on the Instagram chain only use one filter. So if you really like one filter, I would stick with it and really have the same level of editing on every picture, because then you create a very consistent theme. I think Nate, I keep bringing him up because I think he understands how to play the game, and he is playing it hard in a good way. I once again, it's not bad to play the game, but you just have to know when you're doing it and if you're still having fun with it. Because if you're not having fun, or if you're doing it just to cater to other people's wants and likes, then that's where playing the game does become a problem. But on its own, playing the game is not a problem. So Nate, all of his images have like the same angle, the same lighting. His images are front and center, and it's a black and white drawing, or it's a black ink drawing on a white piece of paper, and it's like almost his entire page. That is a theme. People know what they're getting into when they're following, and there won't be any surprises, as they say. And it looks professional. It's very clean. It's tight. There have been artists that I follow where I'm like, what? I can't even see what's going on here. Like, why would they choose this filter? But that's on them. And you don't have to cater your filter to anyone. But I'm just saying this is what has worked for people. And I think, once again, I'm just passing along the knowledge. And then having it be a consistent presentation of self that is a narrative of who you are. Nate, I can definitely tell, well, I don't want to say definitely. You can get an idea of who he is as a person just based on the way that he posts. He's probably very organized. He likes the dark arts. He's a storyteller, and he's very comfortable with the medium of ink. I think there's a lot of things that you can tell from someone just based on the way that they present their page. And I think if you look at mine, mine's a little more scattered. I'm bouncing a little bit from pencil to digital, and even my subject matter, it can be more dark and fantastical, or it could be like swordplay where it's these pretty portraits of people. And I like having more of a jumbled mix of art, I think, because that describes me a little bit. But with Nate, it's very consistent, and he hits it on almost every post. So I give him a lot of credit for that, and it looks very professional. And then in also telling the story of who you are and the narrative of your work, I think having descriptions helps a lot. I think not only does this say who you are past, obviously, the art, but then giving some insight or backstory either to the piece or how you created the piece. People like hearing that. I think the reason I've created a following that I feel close with, and that they send me fan art, or they're sending me these gifts in the mail, and one, it's the coolest feeling in the world. I feel overwhelmed sometimes, but I would say overall, I think it's because you connect with people on a more personal level. You're not just an artist that will just post art and you don't care how anyone feels or reacts to it. I actually look, especially when I do my giveaways, which I'll talk about in a second, I actually look at every single person's page that comments and likes on my giveaway drawings. And even on some of my normal drawings, I'll look at the comments and I'll literally go to their pages and just check out their art. And I think part of that shows that you care. You care about the people that follow you, and they're not just a number to you. They are actual people that follow you. So the next one are giveaways, contests. What's another one? What did I write down? Oh, and it's a connection. So giveaways or contests. I like to do these. I used to do them every 1,000, and I started it when I was at 4,000. And I thought it would take me like months to reach the next goal, but it grew so fast that I've now done it every 5,000. But what I learned from doing them every 1,000, one, is that people loved them. They loved the idea of just commenting and liking and possibly winning something from an artist that you follow. If every artist did that, I mean, I would love it, but I definitely understand why they don't. I think it does take a lot of time. Then you have to package it and you have to do a lot of extra work. But if you put in that extra work, people appreciate that. So if you're an artist that you're starting to see your following count grow, think about doing a giveaway. And it doesn't have to be a big one. I've seen some people do it for like every 100 or every 500, and start smaller. And you'll see how that could exponentially grow. And people appreciate that. They appreciate that you're taking the time to appreciate them for following you. I know that was like a mouthful. but you understand what I mean. And the thing I also learned from it was of how much of a connection I actually have with people on an artistic level. I didn't realize how much some of my pieces meant to people until they would message me either in the giveaways, in the comment section, or even just on a DM. And I think that's when you realize you're doing art not just for a like, or not just for a following count number. You're doing it for people, and it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. You're doing it to connect with others through this visual language we call art. And to actually connect with people, I think, is kind of the goal of why we do art in the first place. So I think a lot of this can be summed up with that. If you're making connections with people, that should really be the number one goal. Everything else should just be fun and playing the game. But it's kind of a balance between playing the game and still pushing yourself artistically to hopefully find connections with people that are deeper. I mean, I could do a whole stream on the difference between like commercial art and, well, I guess it would be like commercial art, fine art, and personal art. And I feel like there is definitely a difference between those three, and the reaction that you're going to get from all three will be different as well. But that's for another stream entirely. And next week we're going to do the contest banner image, so maybe we'll save it for the week after when Key is back. Oh no, I'm sorry. The week after we're actually going to be doing the collaboration stream. So if you guys liked the one we did I think it was 2 months ago, we're going to bring all of Von House, all of my roommates. We're going to switch off and do a 2-hour, most likely 2 to 3 hour stream where you'll get like 20 minutes to a half hour of each of us, and we'll figure out what we're going to draw and talk about. But that's in 2 weeks. Next week's going to be the contest banner image. Okay, I know I'm running out of time, but I'll try to get these two out quickly, answer questions, and be done. Because I got to get ready for my 6 o'clock stream on getting started in Photoshop. If you're interested, click below. The last two, posting schedule. That doesn't mean post a schedule, but the schedule on how many times you post. I try to hit at least 2 a week. I don't always hit this, but that's a goal that I always try to aim for. And even it's a little harder right now because I'm doing a lot of work that I'm keeping secret for Drawtober. So if you guys have noticed I haven't been posting as much on Instagram, there's a reason. But having something that you can rely on of like, I need to post twice a week. And even if it's once a week, I have talked with my roommates. We feel guilty if we don't post for like 2 weeks. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I assume that's more of a bad thing because then we're reliant on Instagram. But that means that that's pushing us to draw even more than what we're doing right now because we're slacking. And I feel like I have this talk with Sean more than any of my other roommates where he really feels that if he doesn't post more consistently, that he's going to be more stagnant with his following count. And I agree. I think if he posted more, he would see his numbers rise on a more consistent level. So be consistent with how often you post. And you see the ones that really get a lot of exposure, the Sakimi-chans, the Kushinovs, they post what seems like every day. And it's a quality post. And once again, taste is subjective. So you could be like, well, I don't like their style. Well, it's like, okay, but overall, technically, you can tell that there is quality there, you know? And they post all the time. So it's, yeah, even, I remember someone was talking to me about how they didn't like a really big artist's work. But they were saying, you know what? I don't like their artwork, but I respect the hustle. And that's something that has really stuck with me because even if you don't like the artist or you don't like the art that they're producing, you still have to respect that they are playing the game and they're playing it well. And the fact that, I mean, you could either be really stubborn and be like, well, whatever, and like rub it off. Or you could be like, you know what? I'm going to learn from them and I'm going to apply whatever I think is valuable for me to apply to my own Instagram page or my own artwork or how often I post or when I post or any of the things that they do. And you can apply it to yourself. So even like creating your own childhood weeks, your own Drawtobers, your own Inktobers, I think that's a trend that we're going to see probably gain some traction. You've seen it with a lot of people making up their own through June, July, August. And I think we'll see more of it. And only, I bet a few will really catch on. But that's another trend where you see these more popular artists doing it and you want to like also ride that train. And who knows, maybe yours will also take on and really grow. So if there's one thing I can say, learn from the way Beatrice did hers. On there was a lot of pre-marketing. She definitely made sure to do it herself, and it was always fun. She always commented on other people that did it. She would share on her stories whenever other people would do it. And the last thing that I have to talk about before we cut the stream off, I know I'm already over, but ask your friends. And I'm primarily talking about if they do art. I mean, yeah, they could not do art and you could learn something from them, but I feel like most of what you could take away and really apply to your own stuff will be from other artists. And I feel like I have learned a lot from my own roommates, especially Key. I think her and I have learned a lot from each other, and how we post, when we post, and what we post, I think it has been very important. And even with like some of my new friends, I won't name all of them, but I've been closer with a lot of bigger named artists now. And I think part of it has to do with, one, my curiosity, and I have no problem going up to anyone at a convention and like introducing myself and just, saying hi. And part of it, I think, is also proving yourself in some way and showcasing that you also are passionate about art and that this is something that you take very seriously. And I think when people meet me, that's something that they can tell right away. And I think that's why I've made connections with more artists, especially ones that are now more on the bigger side, because they're passionate about art. They wouldn't be where they are now if they weren't super passionate. So I think showing your passion is huge. And you know what? I'm going to actually write that down, because asking your friends is important, especially ones that have succeeded with the social game. And I know, I didn't really talk about Facebook or any of the other ones, but maybe I'll end with that. So let me first say, if your passion is evident and it really shows, it will carry you through to gaining a following. So you just got to keep working on the quality, your consistency, and a little bit of luck, but you got to create your own luck. Okay, so this is all with playing the game. I did want to mention really quick, Instagram was not my first social media. It was actually Facebook way back in 2012. And for the first 3 to 4 years, I did not have more than 2,000 followers over that entire span. So I have been where you guys are. If you guys feel like, well, it's easy for you to say that because you started Instagram when you already had somewhat of a following before that. And it's like, okay, but then if I treated Instagram like if Facebook was my first Instagram, then I've been actually doing Instagram for like 7 years, not 2. And yeah, Facebook I've grown to, I think it's like 20,000, but that took the span of 6 years. So it took me a long time. So it wasn't like this overnight success. And yeah, I showed you guys when I got lucky with the Cara Delevingne pick and Loesch sharing my image and Drawloween. But it took a long time. It was not something that just happened. And I think that's something that I'm becoming more aware of as I'm gaining followers, is the people that I look up to or the people that have a lot of followers, they're just people. And a lot of the times they either have gotten lucky or their passion has carried them through where they've gained followers because they have their own tracking system of playing the game and understanding how social media works. And I think it's good to know that it won't happen overnight. And I wouldn't rely on it to happen overnight. It takes a lot of time. And for some people, yeah, maybe they are an overnight success. But who wants to be that? Who wants to feel like they got viral and that's the only thing that they're known for ever? I would rather have a career worth of work that defines me rather than one image, So I think that's all I have to say. Let me go through any last minute questions. Oh, and I guess for those, this whole time I'm so bad at marketing myself. That is my Instagram account. And then for CG Cookie, it is just @CG Cookie. So those are the 2 Instagram accounts. I help with the CG Cookie one, but I'm definitely primarily on Von Art, and then Drawtober is the other one. Okay, so question time. We'll do like 10 minutes of questions, and then I got to run to Subway. They're probably like waiting for me. They're like, where's Tim? How is he going to get a sponsorship if he's not here? Okay. Oh, you guys have a lot. Paladisi says, Plucker is pretty old, but gold. In case you haven't read The Child Thief, I think you'll like it. I need to read that one, yes. Tammy Pay says, the best hour to post on Insta would be great too. Oh, okay, we went over that. Faith says, do you think you would consider offering Prince a battery acid? Maybe. Actually, my little cousin, well, little, he's 6'7" and in college now, but he'll always be my little cousin, you know. He came over and wanted me to print a bunch of my art for his dorm room, which I thought was kind of cute. So I did, and battery acid was actually one of them. And it looked great as a print. And I was like, I don't know why I never thought this could be a print, but it actually looked pretty good. Didn't Instagram change the feed from chronological to most to least likes? No, it's a very weird algorithm. To be honest, I don't fully understand it myself, but it's not from most to least likes. And I think you'll notice if you just scroll, there'll be some that have like 30 likes and then some that'll have 3,000. It is some algorithm. I just wouldn't be able to explain it to you because I don't fully understand myself. But yeah, a lot of people were pissed when they changed it from chronological. Laura says, Cyrene and Piccolo are both my age or a year younger, and when I see their work, I wonder what I've been doing with my life, ... Then I go to my desk and work harder on my drawings. Good. I'm glad that inspires you. I usually hear the opposite thing where it's like, oh, I give up. They're too good. And you know what? I see some 13 and 14-year-olds where I'm like, that's what you're producing? I don't even think I knew what digital art was at 13 and 14. So the next generation, they're going to be great. CMH39 says, how late am I? Pretty late. We're about to end. But you can still get a question in. Cactus says, do you ever miss drawing in color traditionally? Yeah. Yeah. I think I need to do more oil painting, but overall, not as much. Okay. Faithful says, mine is incredibly long, but I feel like it's so me and I love it, but I don't know if I should change it. No. Don't feel like you have to change it. I think it's more of a suggestion. I think with yours, I think you do run into that little problem where the L and the I look like the same. But I've never had a question when reading it. I've always been like, okay, faithful imagination. So it is long, I guess, if there was one critique I would say. But like I said, I've seen weirder names like, Fever Worming, some of these other ones, they're kind of weird when you first hear them, but it's worked for them and they had no problem with it. So if you feel strong about it, keep it. Ella says, I have the same name everywhere except my art Instagram account because I need that name for my personal account. Ooh, that might run you into a little bit of trouble. Maybe really think about that one. My name is pronounced like Litshi. Okay, that will help me. Litshi. I always hear that to be a popular artist. You have to know how to market yourself. Respond to comments, leave comments in other people's work, but if you are naturally shy and not too comfortable with talking to people, do you still have a chance to succeed as artist? Oh, yeah. Yeah, trust me. If you really got to know me, I don't know. I used to consider myself a very shy and introverted person. None of my friends believe me. They all think I'm like this outgoing extrovert, but I would say when I was in grade school and high school, I was definitely more of the shy kid. And I would just keep to myself. I would draw. I was never really picked on. I didn't really have like the art labels and I wasn't made fun of, but I was always kind of just to myself. And I think I really grew up in college. I think a lot of being comfortable with talking to other people is being comfortable with yourself. So I think in your case, if you're the same type of person that I used to be, we draw because we don't know how to communicate through words, and we draw because we communicate through a visual language. So I think if you go to college, or I guess it depends on what age you are, but really take the opportunity to express yourself fully to other people and be unafraid of going up to someone and just saying hi. Or if you see them drawing, just be like, hey, what are you working on? And I've learned, I think it was the second year, halfway through the first year of college, I found out that I became super sociable because everyone that I went to school with was super shy and awkward. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not the only one that's shy, weird, and awkward and have these weird interests. I'm a really big film person, and no one in my high school even really knew what Miyazaki was. So going to college where not only did everyone know Miyazaki, but then they knew all these other weird filmmakers and artists and video games that I've never even heard of. it made me like insta comfortable. I can't even tell you how much I was able to relate to people like right away. So then me going up to someone was like no problem because I knew they were just as weird, if not weirder than I was. So I had nothing to be afraid of. And then I think that translated into when I did conventions and when I met people in real life, then I was so comfortable with who I was. And I think once you learn to have that, it becomes a lot easier to talk with other people. So I hope that helps. CMH39 says, should I be posting work in progress in a story? Yeah, I do that all the time. And I usually put music behind it. And it's like a fun little sneak peek of something bigger that I'll post later. So yeah. Unibraska says, what about doing things like Inktober or challenges? Like, will that give you more exposure? Yeah. It won't be like you'll instantly get famous, but there will be people looking at that hashtag. I will say I did for Drawhalloween. I would check out every day what people were posting on that day because I posted my interpretation of that day. I want to see what you're posting. And I think with Drawtober, if you guys want to get noticed by any of me and my roommates, post on Drawtober this upcoming October, because I for sure will be checking every single person that checks and does any of the days of the calendar. You don't have to do all 31. Trust me, I know how much of a challenge that is. I did it last year with Drawhalloween. But I will say, I will check people that try at least a day. And I will look at your art and I will like it. I feel like that's like I'm doing like horrible marketing for it, but I'm very passionate about this because I love Halloween. I love Halloween. And like even this whole house, we're turning it into a carnival theme for our party this year, and I'm really excited for it. I'm the ringleader. Tammy Pay says, I notice people with a more consistent work also have more followers. I struggle a lot with my style. Any tips for that? If you're still struggling with a style, I think you're putting too much emphasis on it. It will grow and develop naturally. So you keep working on what you want to do, and your quality and your style will showcase itself in the long run. But be sure to be critical of your work and be analyzing what could be better, and then take that next step with your next piece and keep doing that action over and over and over again. And you'll see an improvement in quality. And then you'll kind of find out, okay, I like drawing the nose like this. I'm going to keep drawing the nose like that. And then after you do a few more, I like drawing the eyes in this fashion, or I like having the face look in a certain way. And it'll just develop like that naturally. Okay, let's say 3 more. Faithful Imagination says, do you use a filter? Yes, Aiden. Aiden is my #1 filter. Aiden. I love that filter. It makes my pencil look extra yellow, and it makes my piece look more how I want it to look. So that's my favorite filter. I feel like I'm not giving away a trade secret or anything. Cactus says, I don't like editing or using my filters on my art a lot because it feels like cheating if the picture is not like in real life. You know what? Sean feels that same way, but I feel like, okay, but then digital art, all they're doing is technically cheating then. I think with traditional art, I mean, if you're like pulling it into Photoshop and you're like editing it and like pushing and liquefying it and doing things that aren't there in the image, yeah, I feel like there's some level of it doesn't feel authentic anymore. But if you're using filters with some editing to make the picture, the end result look better, in my opinion, you're playing the game. You're creating an image that is, let me think of the right way to say this. Because I do understand why you think it is cheating. But the reason I still use filters in the way that I edit it is because I want to present my drawing in the best light that I possibly can. And if I was to like take a random snapshot of it with like weird, awkward shadows, I don't edit it and it's kind of blurry, I feel like I'm failing to give that piece the recognition it could deserve, or the best presentation it possibly could, because I chose not to edit it any further than what was on paper. But yeah, I understand the cheating thing. Ella says, I don't feel like posting traditional pencil sketches because I feel like most of the time so light-handed that it doesn't show that well. I'm assuming you mean you do better results with digital versus traditional. I get that. Mine's actually the reverse. But I feel like don't cater to people. If you want to draw traditionally and you want to post it, still do that. CMH says, is it okay to copy and paste the description on all the social medias I have? I do. I think, yeah, have I seen some people call me out on it? Not really, actually. I wanted to say yes, but now that I'm thinking about it, not really. No, I think it just saves you time. Daniel Velu says, kind of off topic, but I'm curious, what's the story behind the fridge bin? I guess really quick, my parents never put my art on their fridge growing up, so I always felt like I had something to work for. So then people were joking that they want to be good enough to be put on my fridge, and they would send me their art. So then I created this golden fridge so that people could send me magnets in their work, and I would put it on the fridge. So that's why the fridge I have is a golden fridge. So it's more of an inside joke. Wix D says, any hints for the contest? Bark. That's the only thing I'm giving you right now. Okay. Ooh, okay, I know you guys, I'm sorry. Okay, let me do a few more because I knew I was jabbering so much. John Miller says, would it be a good idea to make a brand new name and start from scratch? No. Unless if you really haven't developed much of a following on your first account. And I think if your account is John_Miller, I think you're fine. I think it's the ones that are a little bit weirder that feel the need to change it, but I don't think you have to. Tigil says, is yes, it's Tigil a weird name for English-speaking people? What would be your suggestion for my username? No. I don't think I've ever asked any of my roommates if they didn't understand what your username handle was, so it's definitely one of the weird ones. I'll give you that. It's not super weird, but it definitely doesn't tell me anything about you being an artist. But like I said, I've seen artists that don't have art or illustration in their name, and it still works for them. And I think it will work for you too, Tishel. Chrissy says, oddly enough, I was more outgoing in high school than in college. For days on end, I would go to class and go back to the dorm. Pretty sure it's not healthy. No, you should talk to people. Cactus says, I don't know if you know us, but we're shouting out our Instas and following each other, which I think is awesome. Oh, I'm glad you guys are doing that. See, you never know when you're going to get followers or when you're going to meet new people that will like your work. So this is another example of that. Sergeant Guava. Well, hi, Sergeant Guava. I love your name. Says, does Drawtober have a medium requirement? Nope. I know Keith, I think, is doing gouache. I'm going to be doing pencil, but you can do anything. Digital, oils, if you're super adventurous. CC says, I crave celebrating Halloween in France. It's not even a thing. I know, when I went to Europe, I heard that Halloween really isn't a thing over there. And over in America, it's like huge. Apparently it's the second biggest holiday under Christmas that we celebrate, and people really go all out. And I'm not going to pretend like we don't, because I know I do. I put a lot of effort into Halloween, and especially like for trick-or-treating, we try to scare the kids, but then give them a full-size king candy. So like if they can handle being scared or tricked, they get the treat, you know? Okay, I think I got to end it here. So I'm already 20 minutes over. I know you guys had a lot of questions, but like I said, I knew that we would have a lot to talk about. So I wanted to get in as much as we possibly could. And I feel like we did a good job. I feel like I covered most of what was on my notes here. So thank you guys. Whew! So thank you guys again for coming to this weekly Wednesday CG Cookie live stream. We do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. That's -6 GMT if you're outside of the States. And next week, we're going to be doing the contest banner image. So if you'd want to check that out, be here next week at the same time. And for those of you who are Cookie members that want to stream with me tonight, I'm going to be doing one at 6 p.m. Central Time on getting started in Photoshop. So if that interests you at all, I'll be doing streams for Citizen members now every Wednesday, the night of the Twitch streams. And I know for a few of you, that's a horrible time. So I'll also have some in the morning eventually as well, before this stream. And the robot course comes out tomorrow. I have to finish editing it tonight. I'm pretty much done. I'm pretty proud of the results. I can actually show you guys really quick before we leave. And I think the only announcement I have was the etcher bag. I'm going to be doing a review on that. So if you're interested in having one, I'm going to give a full review. And I guess the other part is just thank you guys for coming to these. I never knew how well these like lecture streams would do, but it seems like you guys are actually enjoying them, and I enjoy doing them, so it's like a payoff both ways. There we are. Ah, gosh, I don't know why that took me so long. I'm sorry. So here we are. Let me switch my screen one last time. All right, so this is the robot that I take you through the thumbnails and then refining and then going into a grayscale render, how to add color, and then how to give it a bit of texture, so like scratching and peeling off some of that paint. And this will be out tomorrow at some time, and that's what I'll be working on tonight, along with I have to do a back to school like promo image, and then the stream. Okay, I'm blabbering on and on. Thank you guys so much for coming, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Okay, bye everyone. Love you guys. Bye, and bye.